You know, sometimes life gives you exactly the lesson you need, just not in the way you expect it. Picture this. You're 68 years old. You've spent a quarter century building something you believe in, working alongside people who've become family, creating something that matters. Then one Friday afternoon, your boss's son-in-law, a kid young enough to be your grandson, calls you into a conference room and tells you you're finished. Performance issues, he says. While you're holding papers showing your division just made the company $18.2 million. Now, most folks my age would take that severance check, buy a fishing boat, and spend their sunset years telling anyone who'd listen about how young people today don't appreciate hard work. But here's the thing about us old-timers that these young hotshots never seem to understand. We didn't get old by being stupid. We got old by being patient, by learning, by understanding that the best victories aren't the loud ones, they're the quiet ones that change everything. You're watching Betrayal HQ, where wisdom meets justice and patience pays compound interest. Subscribe if you believe that sometimes the best revenge is simply living long enough to see karma do its work. So while Kevin Torres was celebrating getting rid of the dead weight, I was doing what old guys do best. I was planning. And when you've been around as long as I have, you know exactly where to find the pressure points that young money never even knows exist. I'm Frank Martinez, 68 years old, and I just gave 25 faithful years to Atlantic Industrial Supply in Tampa, Florida. Built it from a two-man operation in a leaky warehouse to a $44 million distributor. Then one Friday afternoon, the owner's 41-year-old son-in-law, Kevin Torres, calls me into the conference room and fires me for performance, while I'm holding the quarterly numbers showing my division hit $18.2 million in profit. His severance, 26 weeks' pay, plus unused vacation equals $312,000. He shook my hand like he was doing me a favor. "Frank, you've earned your rest," Kevin said, sliding the severance agreement across the mahogany table. "Time to let the younger generation take the reins." I looked at him, this kid who'd married into the family 3 years ago and thought he understood 25 years of relationships, loyalty, and blood-earned respect. The controller and HR director sat there like funeral mourners, avoiding eye contact. I signed the papers without a word. But as I walked to my car in the parking lot I'd helped pave, carrying a cardboard box with my coffee mug and family photos, I wasn't thinking about retirement. I was thinking about something Kevin had forgotten. Something about shareholder agreements and trust notes that old man Torres had explained to me years ago when we were drinking bourbon after a particularly good quarter. Monday morning, 63 days later, I walked back into that same conference room wearing a $4,000 suit. I slid a single sheet of paper across the table and said, "Kevin, you're fired." Kevin Torres called the Friday execution like he was announcing a baseball score. "Frank, we're going in a new direction. Need fresh blood at the VP level." He handed me the severance agreement like it was a gold watch for distinguished service. The conference room felt smaller than usual. 25 years of my life boiled down to a manila folder and a handshake from someone who'd never loaded a truck. Never stayed until midnight fixing a customer crisis. Never personally guaranteed a loan to keep the company afloat. "Your contributions have been valuable," Kevin continued, reading from what was obviously a script HR had prepared. "But the market is evolving, and we need leadership that understands modern business dynamics." Modern business dynamics. This from a guy who'd been working here 3 years and still couldn't tell a ball bearing from a belt pulley. I thought about 1999, when Hurricane Francis nearly wiped us out, and I spent 2 weeks sleeping in the warehouse, coordinating with emergency suppliers to keep our customers operational. I thought about the expansion loan I'd personally guaranteed in 2009 when the banks wouldn't touch us. I thought about every late night, every weekend, every family dinner I'd missed to build something I'd believed would last. "Any questions?" Kevin asked. I looked at him across the table, confident, smug, completely unaware that he just made the biggest mistake of his privileged life. "Just one," I said. "Does the shareholder agreement still specify that if Mrs. Torres sells her shares, the trust note becomes callable?" Kevin's confident smile flickered for just a second. "That's not relevant to this conversation, Frank." But I could see it in his eyes. He had no idea what I was talking about. I drove straight from Atlantic Industrial to Mrs. Elena Torres's house in Hyde Park, stopping only to buy a bottle of her late husband's favorite bourbon, Blanton's Single Barrel, the same brand we'd shared every Christmas Eve for 15 years. Elena answered the door in her garden clothes, soil under her fingernails, surprise in her eyes. "Frank, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at the office?" "Mrs. Torres, I was hoping we could talk. About the company, about your late husband's wishes, and about Kevin's plans for Atlantic Industrial." Her face changed. "Come in, dear. I'll make coffee." We sat in her sunroom for 4 hours. Elena cried twice, once when I told her how Kevin had fired me, and again when I explained what her husband had really intended with the shareholder structure. "Miguel always worried about this," she said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "He loved Kevin like a son, but he knew Kevin didn't understand what it takes to build something from nothing. Miguel set up the trust note specifically to prevent Atlantic Industrial from falling into the wrong hands," I explained. "He wanted to protect the employees, the customers, the legacy." Elena poured herself another bourbon. "What are you proposing, Frank?" I pulled out the letter of intent I'd prepared on my laptop in the car. "I'm proposing to buy your 49% share for fair market value. Cash. Immediate closing." Elena read the document carefully. When she looked up, her eyes were clear and determined. "Where do I sign?" As I left her house that evening with a signed letter of intent, Elena squeezed my arm. "Miguel would be proud, Frank. He always said loyalty was the most important currency in business." I drove home thinking about Kevin's smug handshake and how much it was about to cost him. The next morning, I walked into First Midwest Bank like I was going to church. I'd been banking there for 30 years. They'd held the original expansion loan I'd personally guaranteed in 2009 when Atlantic Industrial needed $4.8 million to move into the larger facility. They remembered who'd paid that loan off 2 years early. "Frank Martinez to see Tom Brennan," I told the receptionist. Tom had been my loan officer since 2003. He'd seen me through 3 major expansions, 2 recessions, and a divorce that could have sunk my credit. "Frank," Tom stood up when I entered his office. "I heard about Atlantic Industrial. I'm sorry, buddy. That's rough after 25 years. Actually, Tom, I'm here about an opportunity." I spread out Elena's letter of intent, the company's financial statements, and my personal financial disclosure. "I need $11.4 million secured by the assets I'm purchasing and my personal guarantee." Tom's eyes widened as he reviewed the documents. "You're buying Atlantic Industrial?" 49% immediately, with an option to purchase the controlling trust note. "It'll give me 51% controlling interest." Tom studied the numbers. Atlantic Industrial's balance sheet was solid. $44 million in annual revenue, $7.2 million in net profit, minimal debt. "Your personal financials support this, Frank. Clean credit, substantial assets, proven track record. And Tom, I need this to close fast, before Kevin figures out what's happening." Tom smiled. "How does prime minus 1% sound? Money will transfer Monday morning." I shook his hand. "Tom, you just helped me buy my life back." Friday afternoon, I received the wire confirmation. $11.4 million available for immediate use. Kevin Torres had no idea that his Friday afternoon execution had just cost him a $44 million company. I spent the weekend in silence. Kevin texted me Saturday morning. "Frank, hope you're adjusting well to retirement. Company feels different without you already." I didn't respond. I was busy at the title company, signing documents that would change both our lives forever. Elena Torres met me at Precision Title Services on Sunday afternoon. She brought her attorney, her accountant, and a look of quiet determination I hadn't seen since her husband's funeral. "Are you certain about this, Elena?" her attorney asked for the third time. "Completely certain. Miguel would want Frank to protect what we built." The wire transfer completed at 4:47 p.m. Sunday. Elena now had $10.8 million in her account. I now owned 49% of Atlantic Industrial Supply, but more importantly, the trust note provision had triggered automatically with Elena's sale. According to the original shareholder agreement Miguel had drafted in 1998, if Elena ever sold her shares, the holder of those shares could purchase the outstanding trust note for face value. That trust note controlled 51% of the company. Kevin controlled 51% as trustee, but he didn't own it. The actual ownership belonged to whoever held the note. And I just bought that note for an additional $600,000. Elena's attorney handed me the certified documents. "Congratulations, Mr. Martinez. You now control 51% of Atlantic Industrial Supply." Sunday evening, I called Mrs. Torres to confirm our Monday morning board meeting. "Elena, as majority shareholder, I'm calling a special board meeting for 7 a.m. Monday. Just you and me." "What's on the agenda, Frank?" "Terminating the CEO." Kevin still had no idea his world was about to collapse. Saturday morning, 7 a.m., Elena Torres and I constituted a legal quorum for a special board meeting. We met in Elena's dining room, coffee brewing, legal documents spread across the table. "I hereby call this special meeting of the Atlantic Industrial Supply Board of Directors to order," I announced. Elena served as secretary, taking official minutes. "First item of business, termination of CEO Kevin Torres for cause, effective Monday at 8 a.m. "So moved," Elena said. "Seconded. All in favor?" "Aye." "Aye." Motion carries unanimously. Elena signed the resolution with the same pen she'd used to sign her stock transfer agreement. Second item of business, appointment of Frank Martinez as interim CEO, effective immediately upon Kevin Torres's termination. "So moved." Seconded. All in favor? "Aye." "Aye." Motion carries. We notarized everything. Elena's attorney had prepared all the documents Friday evening. "Frank," Elena said as we finished, "Miguel is smiling somewhere." I thought about Kevin's confident handshake Friday afternoon. "Elena, he's about to learn the difference between inheriting something and earning it." Sunday evening, I made one more call. Security Solutions. "I need 2 uniformed officers at Atlantic Industrial Supply tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Professional but firm. I'll pay double your standard rate." "What's the situation, Mr. Martinez?" "I'm terminating someone who won't want to leave quietly." The 2 off-duty Tampa police officers arrived at Atlantic Industrial at 7:45 Monday morning. They wore professional security uniforms. No weapons visible, but their presence unmistakable. "Gentlemen, I'm Frank Martinez, the new CEO. In 15 minutes, I'll be terminating Kevin Torres. He may not take the news well." Officer Rodriguez nodded. "We understand, sir. We'll maintain a low profile unless needed." I badged into the building at 7:58 a.m. My access card still worked. Kevin hadn't thought to deactivate it. The warehouse crew was arriving for the morning shift. Several waved at me, confused but happy to see me. "Mr. Frank," called out Miguel Santos, our forklift operator. "You back from vacation already?" "Something like that, Miguel." I walked through the familiar corridors, past the offices I'd helped design, toward the executive suite Kevin had redecorated after firing me. Kevin was already at his desk, coffee steaming, reviewing weekend emails. He looked up when I knocked on his open door. His face went from confused to shocked to pale when he saw me holding the stock certificates and board resolution. Frank, what are you doing here? I placed the certified resolution on his desk. Kevin, your services are no longer required as CEO of Atlantic Industrial Supply. You have 10 minutes to clear your personal items. Kevin laughed. Actually laughed. Frank, I think you're confused. You don't work here anymore, remember? I fired you Friday. Check the documents, Kevin. He picked up the board resolution, his eyes scanning the legal language. His laughter died. This is impossible. I control 51% of this company. No, Kevin. You were trustee of 51%, but you never owned it. And when Elena sold her shares, the trust note became mine. The color drained completely from Kevin's face. You can't do this. That's when Officers Rodriguez and Martinez stepped into the doorway behind me. Kevin stared at the stock certificates like they were written in a foreign language. This can't be legal. I'll call my attorney. You should do that, I agreed. But from outside this building, your 10 minutes start now. Kevin's hands shook as he picked up his phone to call his lawyer. I waited patiently while he explained the situation to someone who was obviously as shocked as he was. What do you mean, review the trust documents? I'm the CEO. He hung up and looked at me with something approaching panic. Frank, let's talk about this. We can work something out. You don't want to run a whole company at your age. Actually, Kevin, I've been running this company for 25 years. You've been sitting in the chair for 3. I pointed to his desk. Personal items only. Computer, files, and keys stay here. Kevin started grabbing family photos and his coffee mug, the same ritual I'd performed Friday afternoon. This isn't over, Frank. I'll fight this. With what money, Kevin? You just lost a $44 million company. As Kevin carried his cardboard box past the security officers, I called out. Kevin? Thanks for the severance money. It made an excellent down payment. Officer Rodriguez suppressed a smile as the elevator doors closed. I sat down in the CEO chair and opened the computer. Kevin had been careless with passwords. The first email I sent was to all employees. Effective immediately, Frank Martinez has been appointed CEO. Kevin Torres is no longer with the company. The second email went to our top customers. The third went to Elena Torres. It's done. Thank you for trusting me with Miguel's legacy. Behind the oil painting of Miguel Torres in the boardroom was the original corporate safe. Kevin had never known it existed. Combination: Miguel's wife's birthday, Voro 7/23/51. Inside were all the original shareholder agreements dating back to 1998, every board resolution, every major contract. Kevin had never bothered to read the foundational documents of the company he thought he controlled. I pulled out the original partnership agreement between Miguel and his first investor. The trust structure was Miguel's way of ensuring the company would never fall into the wrong hands. If the trustee ever acts against the best interests of Atlantic Industrial or its employees, the document read, the trust note shall become callable by any shareholder owning more than 25% of the outstanding shares. Kevin's firing of me, the VP who'd built the sales operation and personally guaranteed company debt, constituted acting against the company's best interests. I'd had legal grounds to call the note even before buying Elena's shares. But I'd wanted more than legal grounds. I'd wanted complete control. In the safe was also Miguel's personal letter to me, written in 2019 when his cancer diagnosis was first confirmed. Frank, it read, if something happens to me and Elena ever needs to sell her shares, I hope you'll consider protecting what we built together. You understand this business better than anyone. You've earned the right to lead it. I'd never seen the letter before. Elena had placed it in the safe after Miguel's funeral. Miguel had planned for this possibility all along. I read his letter twice, then placed it back in the safe. Kevin had never earned the right to lead anything. Kevin's employment contract required 75% board approval for any termination payout. The board now consisted of Elena Torres and me. Elena voted no. I voted no. Kevin's severance, $0. His benefits, terminated immediately. His company car, returned by end of business day. His parking space reassigned to Miguel Santos, our 22-year forklift operator who'd never missed a day. Monday afternoon, Kevin's attorney called. "Mr. Martinez, we're reviewing the trust documents. This seems unusual, but preliminary analysis suggests your acquisition may be valid." It's completely valid. Miguel Torres designed the structure specifically to prevent what Kevin was doing. What exactly was Kevin doing? I pulled out the files I'd been reviewing all afternoon. Inflating his salary, hiring his friends at executive salaries, planning to relocate the warehouse to a facility his cousin owns, charging personal expenses to the company. Those are serious allegations. Those are documented facts. Your client was treating a family business like his personal ATM. We'll need to see those documents. They'll be available during discovery if Kevin chooses to file suit. But counselor, your client just lost a $44 million company because he fired the one person who understood how Miguel structured the ownership. The attorney was quiet for a long moment. We'll be in touch. They never called back. 72 hours after Kevin's termination, the phone started ringing. First call. Atlantic Industrial? Is Frank Martinez available? This is Johnson Manufacturing. Second call. We've been trying to reach Frank Martinez. This is Cooper Steel. Third call. Is Frank back? Thank God. This is Peterson Industries. By Thursday, 38 of our largest accounts had called asking for my direct extension. Kevin's phone sat silent. These customers didn't care about org charts or titles. They'd built relationships with me over 25 years. When Johnson Manufacturing had a crisis in 2018, I'd personally driven a truck to their facility at 2 a.m. to deliver emergency parts. When Cooper Steel needed custom bearings, I'd found a supplier in Ohio who could manufacture exactly what they needed. When Peterson Industries was struggling during COVID, I'd extended payment terms to keep them afloat. Kevin had inherited customer relationships. I'd earned them. Friday morning, Kevin called me directly. "Frank, the customers are all asking for you. We need to discuss a transition." "There's nothing to transition, Kevin. You don't work here anymore." "I built relationships with those customers, too." "Name 3 people at Johnson Manufacturing." Silence. "Name the purchasing manager at Cooper Steel." More silence. "Kevin, you inherited a Rolodex. I built the relationships." By the end of the week, our order volume had actually increased. Customers felt comfortable buying from Atlantic Industrial again. They were dealing with Frank Martinez, not some nephew-in-law who'd never earned their trust. Friday afternoon, I called every vendor we owed money to. "This is Frank Martinez, CEO of Atlantic Industrial. I want to offer you a deal." The conversation was identical with all 37 suppliers. "If you require cash on delivery for any orders Kevin Torres places personally, I'll guarantee 2% early payment discount on all Atlantic Industrial purchases." "Frank, is Kevin still with the company?" "No. Kevin Torres no longer has any authority to make purchases or commitments on behalf of Atlantic Industrial." "Got it. We'll update our credit policy immediately." By Monday morning, every major supplier had flagged Kevin's personal credit line. When Kevin tried to order materials for the consulting company he was planning to start, he couldn't get credit anywhere. Our vendors had 25 years of payment history with Frank Martinez. They had 3 years of payment delays and disputes with Kevin Torres. The choice was obvious. Kevin's phone calls to suppliers went unreturned. Meanwhile, Atlantic Industrial's credit lines actually improved. First Midwest Bank increased our operating facility by $2 million based on improved management and leadership stability. Our insurance company reduced our premiums by 15% after reviewing our enhanced risk management profile. Kevin had been a liability everyone had tolerated because of his family connection. Without that protection, the business community showed its true opinion of his competence. By the end of Kevin's first week of unemployment, he couldn't get credit to start a lemonade stand. I promoted people who'd earned it through loyalty, not politics. Miguel Santos, our forklift operator, became Chief Operating Officer. 22 years with the company, never missed a day, knew every inch of the warehouse, understood our inventory better than any computer system. "Mr. Frank, you sure about this? I never been to college." "Miguel, you've been learning this business for 22 years. That's worth more than any MBA." Carmen Rodriguez, our receptionist, became HR director. 18 years with the company, knew every employee's family situation, had unofficial resolved more workplace issues than any consultant. "Carmen, you've been doing HR work for years without the title. Now you'll get paid for it." Tommy Walsh, the 19-year-old who swept floors and cleaned machines, became our first sales development trainee. "Tommy, you want to learn the business? Start by learning every product we sell." Kevin's organizational chart had been full of his friends and family members. My organizational chart promoted people who'd bled for Atlantic Industrial. Wednesday afternoon, Kevin returned to collect his stapler. He saw the new organizational chart on the wall. "You promoted the janitor to sales?" "I promoted someone who works hard and wants to learn." Kevin stared at the chart. "This is insane, Frank. You can't run a business like this." "Kevin, I've been running this business like this for 25 years. You just sat in the chair." As Kevin left with his stapler, Miguel Santos walked past wearing a shirt and tie. Kevin's expression was priceless. At the country club Friday evening, Kevin cornered me at the bar. He'd been drinking. His voice was loud enough to turn heads. "Frank, you stole my company. You manipulated my grandmother-in-law." The bartender looked uncomfortable. Other members were staring. I ordered Kevin a drink, his favorite expensive scotch. "Kevin, let me explain something to you." I leaned in close, speaking quietly, so only he could hear. "You didn't build that company, son. You inherited it. I just took it back." Kevin's face turned red. "I worked there for 3 years. You sat in an office for 3 years. I worked there for 25 years. I have an MBA from Duke. I have 25 years of relationships, knowledge, and credibility. Your MBA didn't teach you to read shareholder agreements." Kevin threw his scotch in my face. The club manager appeared immediately. "Gentlemen, please." I wiped my face calmly with the bar napkin. "Kevin, I'll pay for your drink, but you might want to apply for membership at a different club." Saturday morning, the club's membership committee called. Kevin's membership had been suspended pending review of conduct violations. Turns out the club valued its relationship with Atlantic Industrial's $50,000 annual corporate membership more than Kevin's personal $5,000 membership. Money talks, loyalty talks louder. But 25 years of both? That's unbeatable. Kevin hired a lawyer and filed a Ellis Pendens on our building, claiming fraudulent transfer of ownership. The lawsuit alleged I'd manipulated Elena Torres and violated fiduciary duty to minority shareholders. Kevin's attorney was expensive and confident. The court hearing was scheduled for Tuesday morning. I brought the original shareholder agreement, every board resolution since 1998, and Elena's written statement explaining her decision. Kevin's attorney spent an hour arguing that the trust structure was confusing and that Elena couldn't have understood the implications. Judge Patricia Hamilton read the documents for 14 minutes. "Counselor, the shareholder agreement is clear and professionally drafted. Mrs. Torres was represented by counsel. Mr. Martinez followed the exact procedures outlined in the original documents." "But, Your Honor," The trust provision was never intended. The trust provision is explicitly clear. It was designed to prevent exactly what Mr. Torres was doing, treating a family business like a personal asset. Judge Hamilton looked at Kevin directly. Mr. Torres, you fired the one person who understood your grandfather-in-law's business structure. That was poor judgment, not fraud. Case dismissed. Kevin owed my legal fees. His attorney resigned the same day. Word spread quickly through Tampa's business community. Kevin Torres had tried to sue his way back into a company he'd lost through incompetence. No other attorney would take his case. The real twist nobody saw coming was Kevin's personal guarantee on our $6.2 million line of credit. He'd signed it in 2021 when interest rates were low, and he needed to impress the bank with his personal commitment to the business. Now that Kevin was no longer employed by Atlantic Industrial, the bank considered his guarantee a personal liability. I refinanced our line of credit at 11.4%, higher than Kevin's original 3.2%, but market rate for current conditions. The bank called Kevin's personal guarantee immediately. Mr. Torres, you're personally liable for $6.2 million. Payment due in full within 30 days. Kevin called me in panic. Frank, this is insane. I can't pay $6.2 million. Kevin, you signed a personal guarantee. You're responsible. But I was CEO when I signed it. And now you're not CEO. The bank considers you a personal debtor. You have to help me. Actually, Kevin, I don't have to do anything. You fired me, remember? Kevin's attorney tried to negotiate with the bank. The bank was unsympathetic. Kevin had personally guaranteed the debt. Atlantic Industrial had refinanced at higher rates specifically to call his guarantee. Kevin's financial situation went from comfortable to catastrophic overnight. When you personally guarantee corporate debt, you're betting your personal wealth on your ability to remain in control. Kevin had lost that bet spectacularly. The bank filed liens on his house, his cars, and his investment accounts. Kevin Torres, former CEO, was now facing personal bankruptcy. All because he'd fired someone for performance while looking at record profits. The bank foreclosed on Kevin's $1.4 million house in South Tampa after he missed 2 payments. Sheriff's sale was scheduled for Thursday morning. I attended with cash ready. Starting bid, $940,000. Only 3 bidders showed up. Real estate market was soft, and most investors avoided foreclosure auctions. $950,000, $960,000, $970,000. I waited until the final call. $980,000. Sold. I immediately called my granddaughter Sophia, who just graduated from University of Florida. Sophia, how would you like to live in South Tampa rent-free while you start your career? Sophia had grown up hearing stories about Atlantic Industrial. She understood what the house represented. Grandpa, are you sure? Completely sure. Your great-grandfather Miguel would have loved knowing family was living there. Friday afternoon, I handed Sophia the keys to Kevin's former house. She moved in Sunday with furniture donated by Atlantic Industrial employees. Monday morning, Kevin drove past his old house and saw Sophia's car in the driveway. He called me, screaming, "Frank, you bought my house? That's sick." "Kevin, I bought a house at sheriff's sale. Fair market price." "You're destroying my life." "Kevin, you destroyed your own life when you fired me. I'm just buying the pieces." Sophia sent me a photo from the house. She was sitting by the pool, studying for her CPA exam. Kevin's loss was my family's gain. Sometimes justice looks exactly like poetry. An independent appraisal valued Atlantic Industrial at $58 million. My 51% controlling interest was worth $29.58 million. Elena Torres's original 49%, which I'd bought for $10.8 million, would have been worth $28.42 million. But here's the beautiful part. Kevin's original stake was now worthless. The day I took control, I authorized a new Stock issuance to fund expansion. Atlantic Industrial issued 50,000 new shares at $100 per share. Miguel Santos, Carmen Rodriguez, Tommy Walsh, and 12 other long-term employees received stock grants totaling 30,000 shares. The Employee Profit Sharing Plan received 20,000 shares. Kevin's theoretical claim to any ownership was diluted to essentially nothing. Even if he'd somehow maintained a stake, it would have been worth less than $50,000. The man who'd inherited control of a $44 million company was now worth exactly what he'd earned, nothing. Meanwhile, the employees who'd given decades of loyalty now owned pieces of the business they'd helped build. Miguel Santos owned $300,000 in stock. Carmen Rodriguez owned $200,000 in stock. Even Tommy Walsh owned $50,000 in stock after 6 months of sales training. Kevin Torres owned $0 in stock. Justice served with compound interest. December 15th. Christmas bonus day. Every employee who'd stayed after Kevin's firing received a check for $25,000. 23 employees. Total payout, $575,000. I gathered everyone in the warehouse for the announcement. This bonus represents 25 years of loyalty, hard work, and commitment to excellence. Miguel Santos cried when I handed him his check. Carmen Rodriguez hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. Tommy Walsh asked if he could frame his check before depositing it. The best part? I mailed Kevin a Christmas card with a photo of all of us holding our bonus checks. Inside the card, Merry Christmas from the Atlantic Industrial family. Thanks for reminding us who really built this company. Kevin never responded, but Elena Torres called me Christmas morning. Frank, Miguel is smiling somewhere. This is exactly what he wanted, the people who built the business sharing in his success. The Christmas bonuses cost $525,000. Kevin's salary for 3 years had cost $720,000. Rewarding loyalty was cheaper than tolerating incompetence, and infinitely more satisfying. I bought the empty warehouse next door and knocked out the connecting wall. Double our floor space. Added loading docks, climate-controlled storage, and a state-of-the-art inventory management system. The expansion cost $3.2 million, but increased our capacity by 150%. I named the new wing the Miguel Torres Loyalty Center. Elena Torres cut the ribbon at the dedication ceremony. Miguel believed that loyalty was a two-way street, she said. Companies that take care of their people get people who take care of the company. The new facility allowed us to serve larger customers and expand into new product lines. Revenue increased 40% in our first year post-expansion. Kevin called the day after the ribbon cutting. Frank, I see you're expanding. Maybe you need experienced management help? Actually, Kevin, Miguel Santos is handling operations beautifully. Harvard MBA training isn't required to understand inventory management. I could work for you, Frank. I've learned from my mistakes. Kevin, the Loyalty Center is named after your wife's grandfather. Think about that for a minute. Kevin was quiet. You fired the person who understood Miguel's vision. Now that person is implementing it without you. I hung up and walked through the new facility. Employees were excited, productive, proud. Everything Miguel Torres had dreamed of when he started Atlantic Industrial in 1973. Kevin had almost destroyed that dream. Now it was stronger than ever. October 3rd. Kevin Torres walked into Atlantic Industrial carrying a resume. Carmen Rodriguez called me immediately. Mr. Frank, Kevin is here asking about job opportunities. Send him to my office. Kevin sat across from the desk he'd occupied for 3 years. Frank, I need work. I'm willing to start at the bottom. I reviewed his resume for 40 minutes while he sat in silence. 3 years as CEO. No other work experience. No references from customers or vendors. No technical skills. Kevin, what position are you interested in? I was thinking sales. I know the customers. Name 5 purchasing managers at our top accounts. He couldn't name one. How about operations? I could help Miguel Santos. Miguel doesn't need help. He's increased efficiency 30% since taking over. What about administrative work? I studied his resume again. I have one position available. Kevin's face lit up. Great, what is it? Delivery driver. $21 an hour, no benefits, 90-day probationary period. Kevin's smile faded. Delivery driver. You wanted to start at the bottom. That's the bottom. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. I'll take it. He started Monday morning. Miguel Santos trained him on truck safety and delivery procedures. The man who'd fired me for performance was now taking orders from the forklift operator he'd ignored for 3 years. Sometimes the universe has a perfect sense of humor. October 15th. We threw the 25th anniversary party Kevin had canceled when he fired me. 400 people showed up, employees, customers, vendors, family members. I gave a speech about loyalty, perseverance, and the difference between inheriting something and earning it. 25 years ago, Miguel Torres gave me a chance. Today, Atlantic Industrial gives chances to people who earn them. Then I handed the microphone to Elena Torres. I have an announcement, she said. I'm gifting my remaining shares in Atlantic Industrial to the Employee Profit Sharing Plan. The crowd erupted in applause. Elena's 49% share, now worth $28.4 million, would be distributed among employees based on years of service. Miguel Santos would receive $2.1 million. Carmen Rodriguez would receive $1.8 million. Even Tommy Walsh would receive $150,000. Kevin Torres, standing in the back in his delivery driver uniform, received nothing. Elena looked directly at him as she spoke. Miguel always said that ownership should belong to the people who build the business, not the people who inherit it. The party lasted until midnight. Kevin left early, alone. The final walkthrough happens every morning at sunrise. I arrive at Atlantic Industrial at 6 a.m. before the first shift starts. I walk through the warehouse Miguel Santos manages with precision and pride, past the offices where Carmen Rodriguez has created the best HR department in Tampa, through the showroom where Tommy Walsh is learning to become our next sales manager, into the Miguel Torres Loyalty Center, where employees who've given decades of service now own pieces of the business they've built. This morning, as American flags wave in the Florida breeze and forklifts prepare for another profitable day, I think about Kevin Torres delivering packages in a company truck. He thought loyalty was weakness. Turns out loyalty is the most expensive thing in the world, because when you throw it away, men like me will spend every dime and every day to buy it back, and make damn sure you never touch it again. Kevin Torres learned that lesson too late, but he learned it completely. Sometimes that's enough.